En un mundo en constante cambio, donde la tecnología, el negocio y el emprendimiento definen nuestro futuro, existe una narradora que destaca, Lyanne Alfaro. Su pasión va más allá, explorando la influencia latina en una economía global de más de 2.6 billones de dólares. Desde lanzar su newsletter semanal, Moneda Moves, hasta contar historias en la intersección de cultura y negocio. Lyanne no solo narra, sino que vive las historias. Actualmente en Google dirige estrategias para canales globales que resaltan comunidades diversas de desarrolladores. Su talento también brilló en Nasdaq, reimaginando la forma en que se presentan las empresas al mundo. Reconocida por The New York Emmys, Webby Awards y más. Hoy, Lyanne comparte su visión única en D Mente. Prepárate para sumergirte en un relato de impacto. Bienvenida, Lyanne Alfaro.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Les saluda Mauricio García. En esta ocasión, una entrevista más con una empresaria, con una emprendedora, con una apasionada, curiosa por el mundo de las finanzas y de la psicología, el mindset. Vamos a estar haciendo esta entrevista, obviamente, en Spanglish. Y pues bueno, les acompaño, les pido que me acompañen dándole la bienvenida a Lyanne Alfaro. Lyanne, ¿cómo estás? How are you?
I'm good, estoy bien, muchas gracias. Gracias por entrevistarme en el show.
Oh, el gusto, créeme que es nuestro. Estamos emocionados por platicar contigo. Creemos que lo que estás haciendo es de mucho valor para la comunidad por dos razones. Primero, porque hablas mucho sobre la parte del mindset, ¿no? La mentalidad que se requiere para tener éxito. Y luego tienes una pasión que cualquiera puede notar que es bastante fuerte por el tema del dinero, right? Like the hope, the passion for helping people understand, how money works. So I want to begin first talking about mindset and really discovering where did you get that mental toughness that you have today. So as you were growing up, what would you say is the experiences you went through that helped you have this sort of mindset you have today?
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think that growing up in Chicago, the mindset that I had around money is very different from the one that I have today. Growing up, I saw a lot of scarcity. My parents are two immigrants from Mexico. They came here really just low income, looking for a better life for their children, especially my dad, who had this very entrepreneurial drive about him where he said, I don't know exactly what opportunity lies, but I know that I have some studying under my belt, and I know that there's a lot of possibilities ahead of me. And so when he came here, he first was in a union, a carpentry union, where he picked up a lot of skills. And along the way, he started doing more jobs outside of that as well, as he was able to get his green card and then eventually his citizenship. And he said, what I can do so much more expansively. And this country promises a lot in entrepreneurship. So what he did was he started really helping remodel homes, picking up more skills as he went. But I did grow up with, like, we definitely had to budget a lot. And my mother was the one la encargada en la casa. Que she needed to make sure that the money we made, especially when my dad made the leap from union construction job to like entrepreneurship, that we had enough money to keep us afloat, because there were some months where we had a decent amount of money and other months where that was more scarce and not so much. So through that journey, I learned a lot about budgeting, the importance of keeping track of your money. When money comes in, money comes out. But I think what was really missing was this different structural systems that exist in the US that help us combat inflation, the different systems that help us invest in ways more than real estate. My dad was great in thinking ahead and getting properties for real estate, but that was really the extent of investing. And there's so many other ways to invest and so many ways to stow away your money, and ways that rich people in this country really leverage the system to ensure that they have their wealth protected, not just for their generation, but for ones to come.
All right, I think you, first of all, decided to take on yourself probably one of the biggest challenges right now. It's getting more Latinos to broaden their horizon in terms of where to invest. What I found is most Latinos have most of their wealth in real estate, just like you've mentioned, right? Yeah. And that in great part comes from what they've learned from our grandparents, coming here and thinking real estate is the pretty much best alternative out there to invest. What have been some of the mindset and pushback, I should say, from the community that you've noticed that making it difficult for them to adapt this idea that they ought to maybe participate more in the financial markets other than just the real estate markets.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting through my platform, Moneda Moves, where I talk about Latinos, money, and our entrepreneurial contributions to the American economy, is that a lot of folks that are already on a entrepreneurship journey that have gone through some kind of like job experience, they have a sense of like, I should manage my money. There is some kind of foundation there. But there's also, and they deal with money every day, especially if you're an entrepreneur. You deal with cash flow, money in, money out. But
Right.
there's some sort of blocker where it comes to investing because of lack in banking institutions, especially in the U.S., because of history that's happened in the U.S., but also for immigrants and sons and daughters of immigrants, because a lot of immigrants dealt with an economic and debt crisis that happened in the 80s in Latin America. And so I think that this does go back to history, and it does go back to psychological. And there's all these traumas that our parents have come with, if they come from one of these countries that had one of these debt crises. And then the second layer is growing up as a child and having that scarcity mindset around you as you grow up, and the need to break out of that and invest in the future. So no, you may not have that money today, and yes, you're putting it in a pot to invest, right? Whatever vehicle you choose, but it's investing, it's projecting for your future. And real estate is something tangible. Maybe investing in the stock markets is a little less tangible of a vehicle, right? And then of course you get taxed if you tap into some of these pots before retirement, like a Roth IRA, right? So I think it's difficult for us to wrap our minds around the less tangible, but it's also important to understand the system in which these not physical things exist, because that's how, when you look at the wealthiest people, that is how they manage their money.
Yeah, no, absolutely, all right. I'm just, want to continue into the psyche analogy or analysis, I should say, of what's happening in our community that's still keeping us so far. I mean, lagging. We're percentage of Latinos really participating in the financial markets is so little, right? How much of it do you think has to do with income?
I think that there is a part of our population that really needs to tackle everything that comes before investing. Like there's so much of our community that needs to first address like debt, right? Like if you're deep in debt and you're living paycheck to paycheck, you probably shouldn't be jumping into like big investing in the stock market before making sure that the home base is taken care of, right? And so I do actually see, especially in younger generations and Gen Z, there's a big hunger to invest and riskily invest too. Like we see crypto investing. I think the LA Times had an article 2 years ago about how 18-year-olds were diving into the investing landscape through Robinhood and these accessible apps, which is wonderful that these fintech apps have made investing so accessible. But before we get there, we need to make sure the home base, the like base layer is taken care of. I kind of think of it as like the main infrastructure of the home. How can you begin to put in like these investments in the home, like solar panels, if you don't have the infrastructure of the home built out, right? So that is a big hurdle to get through if you're living paycheck to paycheck. And I do think that there's a gap here, right? Talking to somebody like even myself, who's in a corporate job, who now has the ability to think and project forward, and somebody who's like, hey, listen, I'm dealing paycheck to paycheck. So I do think that they're like, for someone like myself, I've taken the responsibility of working with my parents and being like, okay, how can we do it one pasito at a time? Like, oh, you didn't have a nest egg, you didn't have a sinking fund. How can we work on having a sinking fund in like a high yield savings account, right? Like, how can we start with that? Because it all depends where your start line is, right? We can't be talking about like investing up here if you don't have the base layer. But also that can apply for real estate. And I see some people talking about real estate before we have that base layer.
Yeah, I love how you frame that. Now, I would even argue go even further back, because a lot of it also is how did we get in debt, right, in the first place, in terms of spending more than we earn, because there were actions that were taken prior. So even further back, and a lot of the youth, like you say, that they get curious about investing in crypto and the stock market, is the whole mentality maybe of do you think most of it comes from just FOMO, fear of missing out, getting rich quick, instead of really understanding that investing successfully is a long game, it's a decades game, versus just, I'm going to go in the stock market, become a trader, maybe, either get rich trading crypto, trading stocks, versus really looking at the long game? Let's talk about the psychology here to help some people maybe get their mind right in terms of how to really win the money game.
Yeah, and while I'm not a psychology expert, I mean, I can tell you that investing is absolutely a long game. Even when we talk about real estate, sometimes I heard this with my parents, like the flipping a home. There is a sense of immediacy of immediately getting a return on your investment, and truly, that's not how some of the wealthiest people invest. Some of the people that invest, who are the wealthiest, like they invest for the long game, and they invest to protect their money, right? So we're literally combating inflation. Sometimes you protect from like getting taxed more heavily, right, when you're in those echelons. But when you talk about psychology, yes, I think that there's a certain like impatience, or a certain like, oh, the system doesn't work for me the same way it works for everyone else, because there's a sense of other there, right? Like, it's just like, oh, it might work for wealthy people, but I don't have that time. I don't have that kind of money. And I will not be successful in that way because the system was not built for me. But I think that doesn't take into consideration the time to truly understand the system, so you know how you can benefit from it, and how to like and to ask for help, honestly, right? Like, I think that when I see people investing in crypto, it's often like a solo game. Like, of course, people will sit around a table and they'll say, oh, this is how much I invested, et cetera, et cetera. But like, there's no element of like financial planner, right? Like a certified financial planner to help you get an assessment of where all your buckets of money are and how you're planning for your future. So I think you need to have a plan. That's the other thing. Like, if you're just making immediate games or immediate calls, like, do you really have in mind what the long game is, right? So having that plan and being able to reverse engineer it does a lot of benefits for you, and also takes the stress out of it.
Yeah, it's actually a lot of things, right? Go from the behaviors, how you deal with the money, to adapting this new mindset that it's not just about having investments. You can have investments. You can invest in the real estate and crypto and the stocks, but having the investments is not the same as having a plan. Like, I recognize that one of the biggest expenses we're all going to have in our lifetime is being able to be retired. I know you talk a lot about retirement, like being able to be retired for 20 years, maybe 30, maybe more, and depending on your assets to carry you through those times. That's quite of a challenge. I don't think there's even education is as expensive, even a car or your home is going to be as expensive of having to live 30 years without having to work. And so as you try to advance your mission here with the community, what are some of the mindset you're having to wrestle with the most in terms of helping people have those aha moments to say, oh, okay, I get it. This is what I need to do.
Yeah. So, I mean, again, most of my work has been journalistic, and I especially report on entrepreneurs and that kind of deal. So I am not a financial planner myself. I will say, like, in doing the research for my podcast and my listeners, a lot of them are first generation people who are trying to get their bearings, right? Like, they probably have like some kind of like level of higher education. They have been successful in going through corporate, getting a solid paycheck, and kind of stumbled their way through like finding out like how to invest, 401k, Roth IRA, high yield savings account, all those vehicles, I-bonds to put your money in and start burning it away. But now they're ready to step into the next level. And there seems to be a gap between like the baseline and then the next level, right? Because a lot of these folks are first generation, which means that you're not only thinking about yourself, you're thinking about your family, especially in the Latino community. And you mentioned retirement. I recently wrote a piece about retirement for Hispanic executive. Taking care of an elder, according to AARP, can be anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000 plus a year. So that is a lofty investment, and that's not taking into account somebody emergency situation ends up in the hospital, and now you have emergency.
So if I heard you right, you mean to say, I mean, I'm sorry for interrupting you. I just want to get it right. You're saying that, and this journalism, this work that you did involved executives, right? That what you said? And you said that they have about $10,000 in savings. Is that what you said?
No.
An
That
average? I'm sorry.
AARP says that like to take care of elders costs about $10,000 a year.
Okay. It was my audio. Yeah. Okay. To take care of elders takes about $10,000. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, so that's something to account into when we talk about retirement, right? So it's making sure that you're not taking care of only yourself, but also taking care of elders. So when in terms of the people that I serve and the people I write for, it tends to be first generation people. They have a solid career foundation, a solid salary. They're interested in entrepreneurship. There is a gap between, hey, I have my Roth IRA 401k, and oh, now I'm ready for the next level. To not just invest, but to build a company and build that kind of wealth that I can succeed in this company and then hand that down in terms of generational wealth. So that it's a whole new level of financial literacy, and it's all of these new psychological things that we deal with.
Very good. Now there was this episode, or I think post I saw where you're looking at trends. I thought that was pretty interesting because you're looking at what are the trends in the Latino community in terms of, the blue collar worker versus the professional or the executives, how they think about retirement and how they're actually retiring. Can you elaborate a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I did write recently a piece on how executives are thinking about retiring specifically. Executives are very focused on how can I not just create the most wealth, but like it's more of a lifestyle question. What is my lifestyle that I am planning for and projecting for, and how can I build around that? So a lot of folks, they're considering entrepreneurship because entrepreneurship provides a bigger level of flexibility around the way that you want to live and how you choose to amass wealth. The other is retiring abroad. So with that flexibility of being an entrepreneur, you're not bound to retiring in the United States. And it's so interesting because so many of these people are first or second generation. They may say, hey, the cost of living back in my motherland, whether it's Ecuador, Peru, Mexico, is going to be cheaper than here. And if that opportunity is available, or the country is not in crisis, I can go back and actually live a life there more comfortably for myself and not just my parents, who, by the way, I probably have to take care of in my retirement years. So there's a little bit more expansiveness in thinking where executives come in, because they have, I think a key word here is freedom, lifestyle and freedom. I haven't done as much like blue collar workers, like how they're thinking about retirement per se, but I do know based on my reporting how they live day to day. We're thinking like paycheck to paycheck, getting out of credit card debt. I mean, we just saw the Fed raise interest rates to a historic high. All of these things are hitting poor people the hardest. And so when we talk about money, it absolutely cannot be a blanketed statement to everybody, because everybody comes from different backgrounds. That's absolutely going to impact how you view money. And yes, it's a psyche thing, but it's a psyche thing differently for everyone. I cannot talk to my parents who are working class, these blue collar workers, in the same way that I talk to my peers who I work with at a corporation. It's just not going to translate the same way. While we face similar challenges, it absolutely is out of getting out of that like paycheck to paycheck and starting to open up, a sinking fund, a high yield savings account, to open up that runway of freedom so you have that ability to think long term.
Interesting. Now you are embodied in terms of the things that you are leveraging today. One is entrepreneurship, right? Because you're building a company, you're part of a team that's building a company, and then learning about money. I think those two things, right, are one of the most powerful things that we could leverage in this country. Question goes is, for somebody looking at entrepreneurship as a way of retirement, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's a great idea, right? It's a good idea to use entrepreneurship as a vehicle that can get you to that next financial level. But we're trying to bring like this first generation Latinos that come in, and a lot of them do start businesses, restaurants and barbershops and landscaping, but there are other vehicles that they may not be leveraging. Have you identified what other vehicles can have more lever that most of our people are not doing? Like I see a lot of them gravitating towards real estate mainly, right? Or restaurants or barbershops or landscaping. What have you identified are some of the ones that are having the most success that are gravitating towards?
Yeah, I think that that's a great question, and not one that I have like a ton of insight on, because I do focus on entrepreneurs, right? So entrepreneurs are making a big bet, like especially for first generation folks. They are, when it comes to friends and family for angel rounds of investing, right? Friends and family don't probably have a ton of money, so they're emptying their bank accounts. It's really, it is something that is tough. And you are looking for those angel investors when you first get started, or otherwise having a crowdfunded setup by your community. But when it comes to leveraging other things while being an entrepreneur, I haven't found a lot there. I'm curious to see if you might have any other insights, because
I'm just thinking
there's ways to stow away your money, but a lot of people do, like, that's just what I found. Like a lot of people do empty their bank accounts to dive into entrepreneurship.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can only offer what I went through. I've got in the financial space. I've been a financial strategist for 22 years, and that cost me almost nothing. I mean, I remember paying $150 to get an insurance license. That got me into my feet wet, and that took me from, I used to work at the factory, right, assembling cell phone batteries, to making 20 times what I make at the factory just by teaching college-bound parents how to save for college, and being able to set up these things that help them overcome the inflation of higher education. And so, I found that to be one of the best vehicles, and it changed my life. I'm not sure it's not the only one that's out there, but I do find it interesting how most people sort of gravitate, especially in our Latino communities, if they want to do a career entrepreneurship, real estate, whether it's to become a realtor or to invest in real estate. But that seems to be where most of the people gravitate to, and it's maybe just because they don't know of a better vehicle. I certainly didn't know, but I give credit to a lady from Colombia that basically said, "Hey, this is a better way, man. In this country, you're going to achieve what you want if you develop the abilities and the skills that can change people's lives, that can add value to their life. And then you become worthy of receiving riches and getting wealth." And just, my whole mindset started changing in the entrepreneurship space, understanding, obviously that working hard does not translate to financial freedom.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the hardest working people in this country. I say that with a lot of pride, but at the same time, sad, because even though we're the hardest working, we're lagging so behind in terms of wealth creation. And there's a lot of reasons to that, but we're talking about what are the opportunities that we may not be taking advantage of that have the biggest leverage right now, especially in a big problem like the financial space, because it's such a big problem. There's a lot of people that can actually enter the space and create wealth while helping others become wealthy with knowledge, and wealthy by practicing what it is to learn.
No, 100%. No, and I think like that's why conversations like this are crucial, right? That's why having the community come together and share like what information do you have, what information do I have, being experts in our own rights in different parts, because Latinos and money is a broad space. Like being able to share that information is so valuable. The other thing that I will say that I have seen Latinos do, but not just Latinos, I think a lot of Americans post-pandemic, a lot of folks are participating in the gig economy. And a lot of folks are also having their business in addition to work. So they'll have their full-time job. And this isn't explicit to Latinos, but Latinos are among the biggest creators of business. So you're seeing a lot in our community have their full-time job, and then they run a business on the side. Instead of this or that, is this and that. And I think that is a lot of what we're seeing continue to progress. My question is, will it be sustainable?
Yeah, because inflation, I mean, one of the reasons they're doing it is not maybe because they love to do it, they have to do it now. Now you
Right.
to
A
work,
lot of
right?
people
One
have to
job,
do it.
now it's 2 full-time jobs, now 3 full-time jobs. Now you got the gig on top of the job, and they're still not being able to make ends meet because
And I
inflation
would
is
that
robbing
for
everybody.
the blue collar worker for sure. But I am
Right.
also seeing that in the corporate industry. I think there's a lot of people that see opportunity and great ideas, a great opportunity for ideas. But I think that there's a breaking point, right? There's a breaking point where it's like, oh, my business is growing. I just talked to a CPG founder. My business is growing. I can only spend 4 hours a day on it reasonably, barely keeping my wits about me. But do I really want to? Is it live to work,
Yeah.
or is it work to live? Right. So
Right.
at some point you need to make a call. Where do I really want to spend most of my time?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in wrapping up, I'm just curious, how did you develop a passion for what you're doing? Like, how did you get into the financial space, even though it's not as a financial planner or strategist, but I see that you have this mission to educate the Latino community and maybe the public at large in terms of how money works and what to do about money. How does that come to be?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a journalist by trade, and I fell into business journalism now 8 years ago. At the biggest news industry magazines of the country. And so I was at Business Insider, CNBC. I was at the NASDAQ where I built out their media center. And really what I saw was opportunity. I looked in these newsrooms at a national level. New York is the #1 market for journalism. And when it came to money, we weren't talking about Latinos. Back then, we were only talking about Latinos as consumers. We buy a lot of things. And I knew that I came from a community where Latinos were producers of companies. They made things and they made immense contributions to the American economy. So I wanted to change that narrative and put it on its head. And of course, you can't talk about Latinos and money without talking about personal finances because of the history that we have in this country. It goes hand in hand. So a lot of the coverage that I've done is around that. In that, I've learned a lot myself, right? I don't have a degree in this, but it's been a lot of research. It's been a lot of doing what a journalist does, learning, listening deeply, learning as much as I can, and reporting about the community and what's going on so we can identify those gaps. And gaps, as the way I see it, are always opportunities. So there was a big opportunity in terms of reporting on Latinos and money.
Yeah, I think that is where a huge opportunity lies. I think the biggest, most amazing financial story ever written in the Latino community is yet to be written because the problem is so big, right? Like I learned from one of my mentors who says, if the problem is big enough and the solution is big enough, then you have an opportunity to build the greatest story in business ever written. And I think there's no bigger problem right now. I mean, honestly, than the money, than the financial illiteracy in the Latino community, because that is there's like a common thread that connects most of the problems we have. And I think someone needs to take the lead on that. You know, as you were sharing your journey, how you became a journalist and all that, and saw the opportunity, I'm thinking, I don't remember when I used to watch TV, because I barely watched TV for years now. I always saw commercials on the Telemundos, Univisions, and they were all about go buy a car, right? And the only financial commercials were banks that are not really in business to make people money, but rather to take your money and make money with that money. But a lot of the like TD Ameritrade, like some of the other sort of commercials or brands that you can see on MSNBC or Fox Business and stuff like that, you would never see them on Univision or Telemundo. So I'm wondering, a $3 trillion economy now, the Latino community purchasing power, $3 trillion. It's mainly for consumerism rather than just for investing. I think the opportunity it's there. What do you see in terms of in your research, just maybe the last 5 or 10 years, in terms of the shift in that world of money and how companies are turning at the Latino community, because there's the most I would say dynamic, a vibrant, fastest growing for sure community in the country right now in terms of where things are going to move? Or you feel that they were still being kind of ignored in that?
No, I don't think we're being ignored. I think the attention has turned on us. I think the pandemic was a big turning point because people of color in general were put front and center. But with the Latinos, there was a lot of noise because of the financial hardships we were experiencing in some parts of our community. There was more noise than ever built around the importance of personal finance because we were going through many hardships through that. And I think that many people leaned into that, especially during the pandemic. At that point, I'd already started reporting, so that was it was a really good moment for us to talk about Latinos and money. But I think there we also saw the gap, the big opportunity, which, as you said, is financial literacy. Now that we have all this attention of these companies, they want our attention, they want our money, is what it comes down to. That's why there's so much attention on Latinos. Companies want a piece of that $3 trillion pie, of the 5th largest economy in the world. And so now it becomes even more important than ever for us to build community around Latinos talking about money, people who are motivated to create generational wealth, and to know what the heck are we going to do with this money in our community. The best way to know what we're going to do with this money in our community is to get organized, get educated, and know where our money is going. That comes down to where you bank, how you invest, right? Like, where are you pouring your money into? There was this incredible stat about how often a dollar leaves the Latino community, and it's pretty darn often. Despite the fact that we have this huge economy, there's a lot of money flowing out of the community. And this is not to say that we shouldn't buy things or work with people and do business across race, not at all, because that rhetoric is also extremely limiting. We need to be able to grow and expand, right? But we just need to be very cognizant of where our dollar is going. And in order to do that, we need to be educated about how the system works. That's just what it comes down to. Who's gonna use your money best, and who's gonna invest it in the best way for you?
Yeah, what's just going around my head right now is obviously with 60 million plus Latinos. I know, being in the industry for a couple decades, that a lot of the planning happened across kitchen table. Before Zooms and before the virtual meetings, there was just hundreds and hundreds of thousands of financial professionals serving the English-speaking communities that helped a lot into that planning, whether some of it was to work, maybe a lot of people back in the day, the insurance agent coming to the house, and then the financial advisor coming to the house and helping you navigate through this process. I just see that. I don't see yet AI or anything like that can actually put a plan together. You can open up an app and buy investments, but
right.
That's far from actually creating a whole plan, understanding longevity, health, the tax ramifications, like what's tax free, what's tax deferred, what's taxable, how to properly allocate between the tax environments, right? What is the longevity in your family, current health, that would be something that will do it. I mean, it just create such a massive opportunity that I see 1 million Latinos entering the financial space instead of gravitating towards real estate. You have more realtors today than homes being sold, and that can help in this area of educating people financially. It's quite an undertaking, but it's quite an opportunity as well. We'll see if you do a little research on that, see how many real Latino professionals are serving the Latino community out there. I'm sure there's like a massive gap by the millions. That's
fascinating. That's really interesting.
You know what I mean? Because who is it going to be, a robo-advisor? Or is it going to be, I think that would be quite a work. So we could do another episode just on that, because I just don't see it the way it's been done. I'm not saying
on the AI point in particular is what you mean.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Well, any final comments that you'd have in terms of mindset and money that you want to make sure that our community gets from you as we wrap up?
Yeah, I would say, honestly, one of the biggest things that has helped me as a journalist in my life, not just in my career, is the understanding that in order to get, even for myself and for the people I've written about, to get the money right, we need to be okay with being beginners. Not all of us had the luxury of growing up in environments where we had our parents to coach us through how to manage money, or how to set up our bank accounts, how to set our investing accounts. Many of us didn't, as a matter of fact. But what we do need to overcome, and what we do have the privilege of being able to do, is to get ourselves in the right mindset to be okay with being a beginner. and being okay with asking for help.
Sure.
That is where it
Absolutely.
starts, right? That's where it starts. Like, I want a personal finance planner. I'm going to go read up on these things. I'm okay with being a beginner, and I trust myself to get to the finish line. Just like anything else that's goal driven. I trust myself to get there, but I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to be diligent about this. If I'm going to hire someone, I'm going to do my due process to make sure that I feel like I can trust them, because that's a big thing about money. We need to make sure we
get a second
trust.
opinion, get a third opinion, expand your,
Right.
your knowledge on that. Yeah.
Expand your knowledge, expand your network, and expand your worth. Really, that's like the sequence, at least for me.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the work you do. Thank you so much for being here with us, having this conversation. Hope it's not the last time we get the opportunity to have this type of conversations. So in the meantime, take care. You have a great rest of your week. And
thanks, Mauricio.
We wish you the best.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Mauricio.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
So, so that was quite a conversation, guys. I think one of the things that we need to be talking more and more is about, just money, the whole finance. I truly believe one of the biggest challenges we'll have, I said, is, being able to be retired for 30 years. How are we going to accomplish that without a plan or financial literacy? So really, really enjoyed the conversation. I'm going to have Lyanne Alfaro's information where you're watching this interview. Make sure you follow her and the work that she does. She's definitely out there doing a lot of the work that we don't have the time to do, or we're not doing, but she is. And I'm sure we'll all be better off after reading her work. So with that being said, have a great one. We'll see you in the next interview. Take care. Bye-bye.